What are reflex maps? Oh boy, let's try and keep this as simple as possible because the truth is they're really, really simple and accessible informations, levels of access regarding our body and self-awareness. So very, very simply, a reflex zone or map is a place in the body that corresponds to somewhere else in the body. And really, what that means is that typically we have projections of the whole body placed onto smaller parts, individual parts of the body. So, most famously, this happens on the feet. Yeah, you've probably seen those images of the soles of the feet where all the organs are lined up, and you may have heard of this for the hands. The maps that I work with and studied are actually all over the body, and there are reflex zones everywhere. Even the tongue, the ears, like these tiny little places, the insides of the genitals have even been studied. I mean, it makes sense because every part of you corresponds and reflects the whole of you. This is a very beautiful and very true cosmic law. So basically, yeah, there are places in the body where there lives a correspondence of some kind. And the maps that I have studied that I will present to you, although I've studied others, the ones that I should say I fell for, are these ones that really depict for us and allow us to explore the law of what's called similar form. So the law of similar form is also super, super simple. You could call it a mathematical or a philosophical principle because that's the way it's been studied, that's where this title comes from. But really, it's just the notion that where something looks similar to something else, they have a connection. So very simply on the body, what that means is that where something recalls in its form another body part, they are connected. And this has been studied, and this is what is depicted in the maps that you're going to see, is that there's really a stronger connection always when there is more of a similarity in how things look, the shape they have, the textures they present, and so on. Um, so that's what reflex maps are. That's the way I like to explore them. And this is the sort of way that it can open the world up to you because it's not just on the body that where there's a similar form presenting, there is a connection. It's all through life. You see it all the time, for example, in foods. Yeah. Biggest example being like the walnut looks like the brain and it's good for the brain. The kidney beans look like your kidneys and they're good for your kidneys. All of this kind of thing. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Keeping to the point, reflexes, okay. The word reflexology is actually a very modern word. It's coming from the late 1800s. It was developed by an ear, nose, and throat doctor who kind of put together this modern Western idea of reflexology, which mainly is what people speak of when they're talking of foot reflexology. And if you go and try and Google the meaning of reflexology, it's usually talking about the feet. It's really not a term that is widely understood or widely applied. And frankly, the modernity of this word and the kind of clinical nature of that genre of healing makes it very hard for me to use. It's like a mouthful. I am tired of saying it for so many years, and I also just don't feel that it really reflects the depths of what I know these facial maps and body maps to represent and unlock for many, many people. So that's why personally I am keeping it brief with reflex maps. It's a practical term, it helps people to understand and have a reference for vaguely what we are talking about. So where do they come from? Okay, I just said we've got someone studying reflex maps in the late 18th century in America, the ear, nose, and throat doctor. They have discovered images in the physician's tomb in ancient Egypt, where they believe reflexology is being depicted. Oh God, I used that word. It's not a problem to use the word, right? It's my thing. The Mayans were said to perform this kind of work too, but the maps I'm bringing to you have been safeguarded and housed in the world by the population of Vietnam. So you probably don't know, because a lot of people don't know, but the Vietnamese have their own traditional medicine, much like the traditional Chinese medicine. It's been around probably for the same amount of time, at least 5,000 years. It's very closely connected. And so when these medicines were developed, the physicians at the time were not allowed to touch the body or undress the people who they were serving, their patients. They had to really get good and not only at diagnosing what was wrong with people via their hands, their feet, and their face, but also by providing their medicine through these parts of the body. So in Vietnam, we don't know exactly why, but they became obsessed with the face and specialized in the face, and it's left a cultural heritage of sorts that you can still see today if you go there. People massage their faces like very habitually, especially when not feeling well, in amongst other bodily massages. And this is kind of a hangover from this traditional Vietnamese medicine. If you approach these people, do they know anything about the word reflex or reflexology? I don't think so. For the most part, of those that I've met who have had close to me in trainings, no, this is not a term that they would identify or recognize. It's more like a cultural memory, whereby consciously the sense of what's being done is not really remembered. So it's been lovely to serve some people of Vietnamese heritage who kind of sit there and go, wow, yeah, when you teach me this, it kind of puts together something that my dad used to do when I had a cold or something. So how did they come to me? How did they come to you? Well, in the late 70s, following the Vietnamese War, it was obviously a time where a lot of people were in need. That is when a group of acupuncturists came together and began to investigate these reflex maps that were supposedly ancient that they found. Now, there's some missing information here that I've tried for a long time to find out myself, but it's not really public knowledge where these had been stored, who had been responsible for them, but somehow they had survived and they were available to these acupuncturists. So they found, yes, in their modern study that there was a connection between the face and these ancient maps depicting the body on the face. They made some developments, they made a lot of research, and ultimately they brought it to different places in the world. One of those places was Italy, which is where I encountered it, where my teacher had also been developing and case studying and working with it for some time and really developing it to meet the needs of Westerners. So it's not so much a point system as it arrived to me, it's more a work of zones. It's more a return actually to those ancient maps before in the 1970s they were explored with points at the end of a needle. So that's roughly the history, of where these come from. But it's something that's fascinated me for many, many years. Where does all of this knowledge come from? Like, where does the knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine and the 5 elements come from? The meridians, like, how do we know about them? You know, maybe you've heard the stories of people who were much more energetically adept than most of us, like feeling the energy centers along the lines of their limbs and depicting together where these meridians channels were. Whilst I totally believe in that kind of magic, I think there's a missing piece because when I've looked into it, specifically in the Akasha, I like to read the Akasha and I usually get some very reliable information. I've been shown that actually all of these frameworks for reading the body, especially the ones that are super effective and simple and available to us, but maybe we've forgotten how to use them. So frameworks such as the meridians, such as the marma points, and such as these reflex maps, where do they really come from? Like, they come from beyond. They come from the divine. They have been delivered one way or another to humans and to Earth for the medicine, yes, but for the self-awareness of people. And perhaps at the time that they were delivered originally, whenever that may have been and wherever that may have been, we wouldn't have needed so much reminding, because really these maps speak to the fundamental nature of being human, you know? Like my nose corresponds to my back. You're gonna learn about that in a minute. But like there's a correspondence, there's a connection. When my right upper forehead sort of tingles and calls me to touch it, it may be that my liver is asking for my attention. Like this is something that once it's integrated in you, which I have the benefit of now after 10 years working with them, it's just an assistant to interpreting and understanding your own body, which means also interpreting the flow of energy through your body and the messages of the divine that are arriving here, but also more subtly around you. And it's just, yeah, I say this like it's really the ABC of the language of the body. So I, if you didn't know, before producing this course, really tried to walk away from teaching so-called reflexology. I mentioned I was like bored of that word. I couldn't keep saying it. And also, you know, technically, I really do feel like I'm teaching you A, B, C. Like everyone should know this. And part of me is like, why don't they know it already? So yeah, I say that. I'm not quite sure why. I think to really instill this sense that this is so fundamental, simple, yes, but important, key. And yeah, if you go deeper into where all of this comes from, it's really worth it. It's really worth the investigation of asking questions, you know, like where, who, why. And so that's why I'm able to give you this introduction to reflex maps, because I've spent a long time, investigating those questions myself.